At the inheritance meeting in our family home, my stepbrother Simpson stood up like he was accepting an award, tapped his champagne glass, and announced with this practiced smile, "Dad and I have finalized Gran's estate. I'll be taking full ownership of her properties, all 6 of them. Jamie will be taken care of separately, don't worry." The room exploded. Applause. Actual applause. Someone yelled, "Here's to the Cannon legacy." Cousins rushed to shake his hand. His fiancée Stacy kissed him like he'd just proposed all over again. And Dad stood up with tears in his eyes and pulled Simpson into a hug that lasted so long I had to look away. I didn't clap. I didn't smile. I just sat there with my hands folded in my lap and waited until the noise died down enough for them to hear me. Then I looked straight at Dad and said, calm as Sunday morning, "Dad, you didn't forget something, did you?" His champagne glass stopped halfway to his lips. Simpson's smile cracked down the middle. Stacy's hand went still on his shoulder. 30 people went from celebration to confusion in under 3 seconds. You could hear someone's fork hit their plate. You could hear the refrigerator humming in the kitchen. And in that single moment, every single person in that room knew the performance they'd been rehearsing for months was about to fall apart. Before I tell you exactly what my father forgot, and how the next 20 minutes shattered my stepbrother's entire world, click the subscribe button, like, and tell me in the comments where you are watching so I can send you a hug. Your support helps us bring more mind-blowing stories, and trust me, you wouldn't want to miss them. And I like knowing I'm not the only one who's ever sat in a room full of people who claim to love you right before they showed you what you're really worth to them. Hit that like button again if you've ever had to stay silent while your family celebrated handing everything to someone else. Because trust me, what happened next made every single person in that room wish they'd kept their champagne in the bottle. Now, let me take you back to how we got here. My name is Jamie Cannon, and if you'd met my family before that inheritance meeting, you probably would have thought we had it all figured out. Nice house in the suburbs, 2 cars in the driveway, family dinners every Sunday. The kind of blended family people write Hallmark movies about. But what those Sunday dinners never showed was the quiet scoreboard that tracked everything behind closed doors. Simpson had been the son everyone revolved around since the day he walked into our house. I was 8. He was 10. And from that first week, it was clear whose name was going to matter. Dad introduced him to the neighbors as my boy, introduced me as Rodney's daughter. Simpson got the bigger bedroom because boys need space. I got the guest room that still smelled like mothballs. When report cards came home, Simpson's B's earned dinner out. My straight A's earned a nod, and that's what we expect. Every family event turned into a celebration of Simpson's potential. Little League MVP, high school honors, the summer he helped manage Gran Caroline's investment properties, that one got a toast at Thanksgiving. Dad would stand up, glass raised, and say something about the future of this family, while looking at Simpson like he'd personally invented success. Simpson would grin, soak it in, and never once look uncomfortable with being worshipped. I learned early that I existed in the space he didn't fill. My middle school science fair win got mentioned after Simpson's baseball stats. My birthday meant his favorite cake flavor. When I asked for guitar lessons in 9th grade, Dad said money was tight because Simpson needed a car for his senior year. When I got accepted into a finance program 2 states away on partial scholarship, Dad's only response was, "Guess somebody's gotta leave the nest eventually." So I did. The week I turned 21, I loaded everything I owned into my Honda and drove until I couldn't see our town in the mirror anymore. The city I landed in gave me something I'd never had before: air, space to breathe without someone else's shadow blocking the sun. I got a job as an analyst at a property management firm, started learning how real estate actually works, how deeds transfer, how trusts get structured, how ownership can move from one name to another so quietly you'd never know it happened unless you knew where to look. I still came back home, but only when Grand Caroline called. Now, let me take you back to how we got here. Gran was the only person who called me by my full name, Jamie Caroline Cannon, like it meant something. Everyone else just skipped over me on their way to Simpson. The favoritism didn't start slow. It started the day Dad brought Simpson and his mom into our house when I was 8 years old. I remember Dad kneeling down in our hallway, hand on Simpson's shoulder, telling me, "This is your big brother now. Simpson's the son I always needed. Not wanted, needed." Like I'd been some kind of placeholder until the real child showed up. It got clearer from there. Simpson needed the bigger bedroom because boys require more space. I got moved to the guest room that still had Gran's old curtains. My stuffed animals fit on one shelf. Simpson's room had a desk, a bookcase, and a TV. When I asked why, Dad said, "He's older. That's how it works." The college fund I thought was mine, gone by the time I was 17. Redirected to Simpson's business degree at State. Dad sat me down at the kitchen table and explained it like he was doing me a favor. "Simpson's going to need a strong foundation. You're smart. You'll figure it out." I did figure it out. I figured out that in our family, my future was negotiable, and his wasn't. Look at our family photos from those years. Really look. Simpson's centered in every single one. Dad's hand on his shoulder, Mom beaming beside him. I'm there, usually on the edge, half-cropped sometimes, smiling because that's what you do when someone points a camera at you. We got those photos printed at Walgreens every Christmas. I kept mine in a drawer, face down. When I got accepted into that finance program 2 states away, full scholarship plus a grant, Simpson was the first to speak. "You only got that because of quotas," he said at dinner, like it was casual. Dad didn't correct him. He just passed the potatoes and asked Simpson about his internship application. That's when I stopped trying to be seen. I got quiet, strategic. I started watching instead of participating, watching how Dad's face lit up when Simpson walked in, how every family story somehow looped back to something Simpson said or did. I learned that being invisible had its advantages. People don't guard their words around someone they don't see. The day I turned 21, I left. Packed my Honda, drove until the city limits disappeared behind me, and didn't look back until Gran called 6 months later asking when I was coming to visit. Not Dad. Not Simpson. Gran. She was the only one who noticed I was gone. And years later, sitting in that property management firm, learning how estates transfer and how trusts protect assets from people who don't deserve them, I had no idea Gran was watching me too, and planning something that would change everything. Gran Caroline didn't build her portfolio by accident. 40 years of buying, renovating, and holding. 4 commercial buildings downtown, 2 residential complexes on the east side. She started with a duplex she bought with her divorce settlement in 1985. and turned it into an empire one property at a time. By the time I was old enough to understand what she'd done, she was the wealthiest person in our family, and the only one who actually earned it. She saw everything. The way Dad's voice changed when Simpson entered a room. The way I learned to finish my sentences quickly before someone interrupted. The way Simpson showed up to family dinners in new clothes every month but never seemed to actually work for any of it. "Your father's blind," she told me once during a visit when I was 23. We were sitting on her back porch, reviewing rent rolls from her commercial properties. She'd started teaching me how to read financial statements, how to spot problems before they became disasters. "He's so desperate for Simpson to be something special that he can't see what that boy actually is." "And what's that?" I asked. "Lazy, entitled, dangerous when he thinks no one's watching." Those porch conversations became my education. Gran taught me about property management, about cash flow and appreciation, about the difference between assets that cost you and assets that pay you. But more than that, she taught me about power. "Real power is quiet power, Jamie girl," she'd say, tapping her coffee mug against mine. "Loud people need audiences. Quiet people just need leverage." I didn't know she was teaching me specifically. I thought she was just sharing what she knew. Then, about 4 years ago, she started asking different questions. Questions about trusts, about estate planning, about how to move assets without triggering family drama. I helped her organize files, recommended an attorney friend named Evelyn, helped her sort through decades of paperwork. "You ever think about what happens to all this when I'm gone?" she asked one night. "Don't talk like that," I said automatically. "I'm 81, baby. I can talk however I want." She smiled, but her eyes were serious. "Some people inherit money, others inherit character. Question is, which one actually matters?" I didn't have an answer then. I thought it was one of her philosophical moments, the kind where she'd get quiet and reflective after too much wine. I didn't know she was testing me. I didn't know she'd already started watching Simpson more carefully, noticing his expensive dinners, his new car, his suddenly upgraded lifestyle. I didn't know she'd started reviewing her own bank statements with the kind of attention that finds things people tried to hide. And I definitely didn't know that in less than a year she'd call me with an invitation that would change everything. "Come visit me next month," she said on the phone one Tuesday. "I have something important to show you." 2 years before the inheritance meeting, Simpson made his move. "I'm going to help Gran manage her investments," he announced at Sunday dinner, like he was volunteering for charity work. "She's getting older, and someone needs to make sure her portfolio's being handled properly." Dad nearly cried with pride. "That's my boy. Taking care of family." Gran didn't ask for help. Simpson offered. Or more accurately, Simpson positioned himself as the responsible grandson while I lived 2 states away. Dad co-signed the whole thing, probably convinced Gran into agreeing, and suddenly Simpson had access to decades of careful financial planning. He started small. Consultation fees, paid to his newly formed LLC, $2,000 here, $3,000 there. Payments for property management services that he wasn't actually providing. Then came the renovation invoices. Companies with names like Summit Restoration and Prestige Property Services, billing Gran's accounts for work that never happened. He'd gotten good at forging her signature. Practicing, I'd later learn, on credit card receipts and minor documents until he could replicate it perfectly. 18 months. Nearly $300,000 drained from accounts Gran had spent 40 years building. Simpson's lifestyle inflated like a balloon. New BMW, designer suits, dinners at restaurants that required reservations weeks in advance. Then came the engagement. Proposed to Stacy with a ring that must have cost $20,000, had the whole thing photographed for Instagram. The family praised his success. That business degree really paid off, Aunt Kimberly gushed. He's doing so well for himself. Nobody asked where the money came from. Nobody wondered how a guy 3 years out of college with a middling job at a consulting firm could suddenly afford a luxury car and a diamond ring. They just assumed Simpson was special, because they'd been assuming that his entire life. But Gran noticed. She started reviewing her statements more carefully that fall. Called Evelyn, her attorney friend, to look at withdrawal patterns. Found invoices from companies that didn't exist when she Googled them. Saw her own signature on forms she never signed. He's been stealing from me, she told Evelyn quietly. I didn't know about this conversation until later. Rodney's golden boy has been robbing me blind. Evelyn wanted to call the police immediately. Gran refused. Not yet, Gran said. I want to see how far he'll go. And I want to see if Rodney notices. He didn't. Dad saw what he wanted to see. A successful son, a future leader, the boy who'd carry the Cannon name forward. Gran saw the truth, and she made a decision that would detonate in that living room 2 years later. I won't let him destroy what I built. She called me 3 days later. Jamie, I need you to come home. We need to talk. 3 years before the inheritance meeting, I drove home for what Gran called a special visit. She picked me up in her Lexus, didn't take me to her house. Instead, we drove downtown to a law office where Evelyn was waiting with paperwork spread across a mahogany conference table. Sit down, Jamie girl, Gran said. That's when she told me everything. The theft, the forged signatures, the nearly $300,000 Simpson had stolen. Showed me the bank statements, the fake invoices, the trail he'd left thinking no one was paying attention. I'm transferring everything to you, she said, calm as if she was discussing the weather. All 6 properties, effective immediately. I couldn't breathe. Gran, I can't. What about Simpson? Dad will lose his mind. Simpson is a thief. Your father chose his favorite a long time ago. Her voice was steady, final. I'm choosing mine. The legal process took 4 hours. Every property, the 4 commercial buildings, the 2 residential complexes, everything she'd built over 40 years, transferred into an irrevocable living trust. My name on every document. Successor trustee, sole beneficiary. Gran kept a life estate, meaning she'd continue living in her house and collecting income until she passed. But ownership? That was mine. Legally, permanently, filed with the county clerk, notarized, sealed. Evelyn handed me copies of everything. These documents are ironclad, she said. No one can contest them. Gran pulled an envelope from her purse, thick, cream-colored paper, my name written in her careful handwriting. This is for you. Read it when you're ready, but not yet. Lock it somewhere safe. Inside, she'd written everything. The embezzlement discovery, Simpson's theft, an apology for Dad's favoritism that made my throat tight. And at the bottom, you were always my true heir, not because of blood, but because of character. Don't tell anyone, Gran said as we left Evelyn's office. Not yet. I want to see what they do. Let them show their true colors first. Gran, this is necessary, she finished. Simpson thinks he's clever. Your father thinks Simpson walks on water. Let them plan. Let them scheme. Then we'll show them what real planning looks like. I drove back to my apartment that night with a folder full of deeds and a secret that weighed more than anything I'd ever carried. I didn't tell my roommate, didn't tell my coworkers, didn't even let myself think about it most days. I just waited. 3 years, watching Simpson's Instagram posts about success, watching Dad's proud comments under every photo, knowing the whole time that everything they assumed was already gone. Gran passed away on a Tuesday morning in October, peaceful in her sleep. She was 84. I got the call from Dad at 6 a.m. Mom's gone, he said, voice shaking. Then, almost immediately, Simpson's been managing everything. He'll handle the arrangements. Of course he would. The funeral was Saturday. Simpson stood at the front accepting condolences like he was hosting a networking event. Expensive black suit, practiced somber expression. Stacy beside him, playing the supportive fiancé perfectly. By Monday, Simpson was arranging her affairs, telling relatives he'd been managing Gran's estate for years, that everything was organized, that the inheritance meeting would be just a formality. I stayed quiet, watched him perform. 3 days before the scheduled meeting, Dad and Simpson cornered me in Gran's kitchen while I was packing up her personal items. Jamie, we need you to sign something, Dad said, sliding papers across the counter. Simpson smiled. Professional, calm. Just a standard family document. Waiver of contest, keeps everything clean and legal. I read every word. It was exactly what I expected. A document relinquishing all rights to Gran's property, all claims to her estate, everything. Sign here, and I'd have no legal standing to challenge anything. What happens if I don't sign? I asked. Dad's face tightened. Don't make this difficult, Jamie. Simpson's been running things. This is how Mom wanted it. She told you that? I looked directly at Dad. She trusted me with her affairs, Simpson cut in, voice just sharp enough to hear the edge. This is just a formality. I set the pen down. I'll wait for the official reading. Simpson's mask slipped for just a second, jaw clenched, eyes cold. You're being selfish. Maybe, I said, meeting his stare. Or maybe I'm being careful. Dad looked disappointed. Simpson looked furious. They left the kitchen without another word. I waited until their cars pulled away, then called Evelyn. The documents are airtight, she confirmed. You own everything. Legally, they can't touch it. That night I prepared a leather folder, copies of all 6 deeds, notarized and sealed. The trust documents. Gran's handwritten letter. Bank statements showing Simpson's theft. Everything organized, tabs color-coded, ready. Gran was right about them. They weren't mourning her. They were dividing her assets. Thursday morning, meeting day. I dressed simply. Black pants, white blouse, minimal jewelry. Put the leather folder in my bag. Drove to the house I grew up in. 30 people were already there when I arrived. Champagne chilling. catered appetizers. Aunt Kimberly hugged me, whispered, "I'm so sorry, honey." She had no idea what she was sorry for yet. The Cannon living room had never held this many people. Folding chairs borrowed from the church lined the walls. Cousins I hadn't seen in years, neighbors, Gran's book club friends, and right in front, a catering setup that looked more like a wedding reception than an inheritance meeting. Simpson had orchestrated everything: the champagne in crystal flutes, the carefully arranged seating with him at the head, his fiancée Stacy positioned beside him like they were royalty holding court. Even the family attorney looked confused by the production, sitting off to the side with a briefcase, clearly not in charge of this show. I took a seat in the back, quiet, observant. The leather folder rested on my lap. Aunt Kimberly squeezed into the chair beside me. "You doing okay, honey?" I nodded. Didn't trust my voice yet. At exactly 2 p.m., Simpson stood, tapped his champagne glass with a silver pen until the room quieted. He was wearing what had to be $1,000 suit, hair styled, smile practiced and perfect. "Thank you all for coming," he began, voice carrying like he'd rehearsed this. "We're here to honor Gran Caroline's legacy and celebrate the future of everything she built." People murmured appreciation. Someone said, "Amen." "Gran always knew I'd carry on the Cannon name," Simpson continued, looking around the room like he was accepting an award. "For the past few years, I've been managing her properties, learning from her, preparing to steward what she spent 40 years creating." Dad was beaming, actually beaming, tears in his eyes, proud smile, looking at Simpson like he'd just cured cancer. "So today, I'm honored to announce that the estate has been finalized. All 6 properties, the commercial buildings downtown, the residential complexes, will transition to me. I'll be taking full ownership and control." The room erupted. Actual applause. Cousin stood up to shake his hand. Stacy kissed him. Someone whistled. Simpson held up his hand for quiet, still smiling. "Jamie will be taken care of privately." Gran left her a few personal items. More applause, like I'd just won a consolation prize. I sat perfectly still, didn't clap, didn't smile, just watched Simpson soak in the congratulations, watched Dad stand to hug him, watched Stacy wipe away happy tears. The attorney was frowning now, looking at papers in his briefcase, clearly realizing something was wrong with this narrative. Aunt Kimberly leaned over, whispered, "You okay, honey?" I nodded, reached for my leather folder. The room was still celebrating. Someone had popped another bottle of champagne. Cousins were already asking Simpson about his plans for renovations. I stood up slowly. The movement caught a few eyes, then more. The noise started fading, conversations dying out in waves as people noticed me standing there, folder in hand. Simpson turned, smile still fixed on his face. "Jamie, you want to say something?" "Actually," I said, voice steady and clear, "I have a question." I looked straight at Dad. "Dad? You didn't forget something, did you?" The room went from celebration to confusion in about 3 seconds. You could see it ripple through the crowd, heads turning, smiles freezing. The champagne bottle someone was holding stopped mid-pour. Simpson's smile cracked at the edges. "What are you talking about?" I didn't answer him, just opened the leather folder and started spreading documents across the coffee table. 6 deeds, Notarized, sealed, stamped with the county clerk's raised seal. Each one dated 3 years ago. Gran transferred every property to me, I said, voice calm, clear, loud enough for the back row to hear. 3 years ago, there is no estate to distribute. Simpson owns nothing. The room exploded, but differently this time. Simpson lunged forward, grabbed the documents with shaking hands. That's impossible. These are fake. These have to be. They're real, Evelyn said, stepping forward from where she'd been standing quietly by the door. I'm Caroline's attorney. I witnessed every signature. Those transfers were filed legally and are completely binding. Simpson? Stacy's voice cut through the chaos. What is she talking about? The attorney was on his feet now, reading over Simpson's shoulder, face going pale. These are legitimate. The clerk's seal, the notary. This is all legal. Dad! Simpson turned to Rodney, desperate. Dad, do something. She's lying. But I wasn't done. I pulled out the bank statements, the forged invoices, the trail of nearly $300,000 draining from Gran's accounts over 18 months, spread them across the table like playing cards. Gran found out what you were doing, I said. The fake renovation companies, the forged signatures, the consultant fees you paid yourself. She documented everything. Stacy took a step back. Simpson, is that true? No. Jamie's making this up. She's always been jealous. Summit Restoration. I read from an invoice. Billed Gran $18,000 for roof repairs that never happened. The company doesn't exist. You created it. Prestige Property Services, same thing. $25,000 for foundation work on a building that didn't need it. Lord have mercy, Aunt Kimberly breathed. I pulled out Gran's letter, hands steady even though my heart was hammering. Started reading aloud. Jamie, by the time you read this, I'll be gone. I discovered that Simpson has been stealing from me. Nearly $300,000 over 18 months. Your father refused to see it, but I have all the proof. Stop, Simpson shouted. Just stop. You don't understand. I was trying to help. Help yourself, Evelyn said coldly. Mrs. Cannon documented everything. If you'd like to dispute these transfers, we can do it in court, along with discussing the embezzlement charges. The room was backing away from Simpson now. Literal physical steps backward. Stacy pulled off her engagement ring, dropped it on the table, and walked out. Just left. The door slamming echoed through the silence. Dad had sunk into a chair, face gray, staring at the documents like they were written in another language. We can work this out as a family, he finally said, voice weak. Jamie, please. We can... No. I started gathering the documents, putting them back in order. Gran saw who you really were, Simpson. So did I. These properties are mine. Legally. Permanently. If you want to dispute it, I have 3 lawyers ready, and evidence of fraud that I'm happy to share with the police. Simpson lunged toward me. Evelyn stepped between us, firm and immovable. You're making a mistake, Simpson hissed. This family will never forgive you. This family, I said, stopped being my family a long time ago. I closed the folder, walked toward the door. 30 people staring, silent, stunned. Dad called after me. Jamie, please. I didn't turn around. I walked out into the afternoon sun, folder under my arm, head high, and I didn't look back. Behind me, I heard someone say, "Did that really just happen?" Yeah, it really did. The fallout was spectacular. Simpson faced a police investigation within a week. Turns out when you forge someone's signature and steal $300,000, people notice. The evidence was airtight. Gran had documented everything. His employer launched an internal audit that uncovered other irregularities in client accounts. He was fired by the end of the month. Stacy broke off the engagement publicly, posted on Instagram about discovering someone's true character, and returned the ring via certified mail. I almost felt bad for him. Almost. Dad tried calling me 47 times in the first 3 days. I didn't answer. He left voicemails begging me to reconsider, to work something out, to remember that family is forever. I deleted every single one. The extended family scattered like roaches when the lights come on. The same cousins who'd cheered for Simpson suddenly pretended they'd always known something was off. Aunt Kimberly was the only one who reached out genuinely, apologized for not seeing what was happening, asked if I was okay. I told her I was, and I actually meant it. Dad had to sell the family home. Turned out he'd co-signed on some of Simpson's business ventures and was liable when everything collapsed. The house I grew up in, the one where Simpson got the bigger bedroom and I learned to be invisible, sold to a young couple with 3 kids. I hope they're happier there than I ever was. As for me, I took full control of the 6 properties, hired a professional management company, updated the commercial spaces, renovated the residential units, increased the value across the board. Those properties generate more monthly income than I ever made at my corporate job. I bought a house with that income, nothing massive, just a 2-bedroom in a quiet neighborhood where I don't share walls with anyone and every room is mine. I framed Gran's letter and hung it in my home office, right above my desk where I can see it every day. Some nights I still think about that inheritance meeting, the look on Simpson's face when the room turned, the way Dad deflated when he realized his golden boy was a thief, the sound of Stacy's ring hitting the table. But mostly I think about Gran. Visit her grave every Sunday with fresh flowers. Sit there and tell her about the properties, about the renovations, about the life I've built with what she gave me. You were always enough, Jamie girl. That's what she told me the last time I saw her alive. Squeezed my hand in hers, looked me dead in the eye, and said it like she was planting seeds she knew would take time to grow. Here's what I learned, and I want you to hear this. Gran didn't just leave me property. She left me proof. Proof that someone saw me, valued me, chose me when everyone else made me invisible. And that's worth more than 6 buildings could ever be. Simpson thought he'd inherit everything. Instead, he lost it all. His fiancée, his job, his reputation, his freedom. And me? I inherited exactly what Gran wanted me to have. Freedom. Drop a comment if this story hit home for you. Because sometimes the people who overlook you, they're the same ones who'll regret it when you finally step into the light.